Your dad probably taught you how to parallel park, maybe how to throw a punch, or check the oil in a car, or talk your way out of a speeding ticket. His dad taught him how to not get gored by a wild boar. Same job description, slightly higher stakes. For almost all of human history, teaching your son a skill didn't mean helping with homework. It meant handing him a sharpened stick and slowly, painfully, over the better part of 2 decades, turning him into someone who could keep an entire family fed. No school, no manual, no do-overs. If the lesson didn't take, people didn't eat. And here's the part that's going to mess with your head a little. You'd think a kid picks this up by 10, maybe 12, and boom, he's a hunter. That is not even close to true. The real answer to how long this actually took is way bigger than you think, and we're getting there. But first, let's start where every hunter actually started, as a toddler, doing something that looked a lot like playing. Long before a boy ever held a real weapon, he was already training, and nobody called it training, it just looked like play. Anthropologists studying groups like the Hadza in Tanzania and the Bayaka in Congo, 2 of the last hunter-gatherer societies left on Earth, have watched this up close. Kids as young as 5 are already out foraging semi-independently, using tiny bows and little digging sticks that their parents or older siblings built specifically for their size. The boys go off and hunt, sometimes what they bring back is a butterfly. They hand it over to the girls, who cook it over a pretend fire, and then everyone shares it, following the exact same social rules real meat sharing follows among the adults. It's adorable. It's also dead serious. That butterfly hunt is a full dress rehearsal for a system that will decide whether this kid eats in 20 years. And here's the part that should sound familiar. This pretend play that's secretly a job interview thing, you already know it. Ever seen a kid obsessively practicing free throws in the driveway, convinced he's training for the NBA? Same wiring, same drive to rehearse the adult version of life before anyone's actually counting on you to perform. The only difference is, nobody starves if he bricks the free throw. And it turns out the toys weren't really toys either.
Chapter 2. The weapons got real before the kid did. Archaeologists have found child-sized flint spear points buried in prehistoric graves in Sweden. Miniature Viking-era weapons have turned up from Russia all the way to Greenland. And on the Oregon coast, researchers digging through a 1,700-year-old rubbish pile found something that changed how they thought about ancient childhood entirely. The broken pieces of several atlals, spear-throwing tools that were, before the bow and arrow came along, one of the deadliest hunting weapons humans had ever built, sized down for kids. So these weren't harmless toys built to keep a child busy, they were the real technology, scaled to a smaller pair of hands. The training weight, basically. And that tells you something important. The goal was never just to entertain a kid until he grew up. The goal was to get him holding real killing tools as early as his body could handle it. But here's the thing, nobody's toy bow could teach him. The hardest part of hunting was never the weapon. Chapter 3. Reading the ground before reading the target. Ask anyone who's actually studied hunter-gatherer hunting, and they'll tell you the real skill isn't aim, it's tracking. And the San Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert took this to a level that's honestly hard to believe. A footprint pressed into sand can tell a trained tracker the animal's species, its size, how long ago it passed, which direction it's moving, even how tired or stressed it is, just from how deep the print sits and how the stride is spaced. There's a famous account of a kudu being tracked across the blazing Kalahari heat, and as the hours passed, its footprints started changing. The stride got shorter, it was kicking up more sand with each step. The trackers didn't need to see the animal to know it. The ground was telling them the kudu was about to collapse from heat exhaustion. That's not a skill you pick up in a season, that's a language. And for years, a father's main job wasn't handing his son a weapon at all. It was pointing at dirt, crouching down next to a print that looks to you and me like literally nothing, a smudge, and explaining patiently, for the 100th time, what it actually means. Imagine trying to teach that to a distracted 8-year-old who'd rather be climbing something. That's the job, for years, before the kid ever gets to do the fun part. Which brings us to the actual secret weapon hiding underneath all of this.
Chapter 4. Humans can't outrun anything, we just never stop. A kudu can outsprint a human easily, so can almost every animal humans have ever hunted. But sprinting isn't the trick. Humans are built for something almost no other predator on the planet can do: running an animal into the ground over hours in brutal heat until it physically can't keep going. It's called persistence hunting, and it's basically humanity's cheat code. We're bad at fast. We're terrifyingly good at we will simply not stop. And a father teaching a son to hunt wasn't just teaching him to shoot straight. He was teaching him to outsuffer an animal that was faster, stronger, and better armed than he was, using nothing but patience and a working set of lungs. Chapter 5. Every generation got a weapon upgrade. Here's something wild. For most of human history, the deadliest weapon a father could hand his son was something he himself had only just learned to use. The earliest hints we have of bow and arrow technology go back roughly 71,000 years from tiny stone points at a cave site in South Africa. In France, evidence suggests early modern humans were already using bows around 54,000 years ago. That means somewhere in that timeline, there was a father who grew up throwing spears by hand, who then had to learn an entirely new weapon himself, just so he could pass it down to his son. The curriculum kept getting rewritten mid-lesson. Now here's where the story takes a turn you probably weren't expecting. Chapter 6. Dad wasn't the only teacher. You've probably been picturing this whole thing as one dad, one son, one long one-on-one apprenticeship. That's not actually how most of it worked. Researchers following Hadza and Bayaka kids for hours at a time recorded something surprising. Children were teaching each other constantly, way more than adults were teaching them. Somewhere between 6 and 8 teaching moments an hour, and most of it was happening kid to kid, completely out of sight of the parents. Older kids showing younger ones how to grip a bow, how to sneak up on something, how to fake a whole hunting expedition using nothing but sticks and imagination. So the real picture isn't a single father passing down secret knowledge in isolation. It's a father starting the process, and then an entire pack of kids finishing each other's education while the adults were busy doing literally everything else required to keep a camp alive. Which sets up the biggest twist in this whole story. Chapter 7. It took way longer than you think. Remember that question from the start? How long does it actually take to become a real hunter? Studies on groups like the Ache, the Hadza, and the Chimon found something that breaks the whole kid becomes a hunter by his teens assumption completely. Hunting success in these societies doesn't peak until somewhere between age 35 and 50, not 15, not 20, 35 to 50. It's not about strength. Strength peaks way earlier, and then it's a slow, boring decline. What takes decades to build is the mental library, knowing exactly how 12 different species behave in 12 different kinds of weather, knowing which track means wounded and slow versus healthy and fast. That kind of pattern recognition simply cannot be rushed, no matter how strong your arms get. Which means the father in this story wasn't done teaching once his son could hit a target. He kept teaching for another 20 years. Some research even suggests older hunters, well into their 60s, were still net contributors to the group, their bodies slower, their internal database bigger than ever. So if hunting takes that long, and if half the lesson didn't even come from dad, then what was the actual thing being passed down here? Patience, silence. Hunts were often done with hand signals only, because talking scares off everything within a mile. Humility, because even the best hunters miss constantly, and you learn to walk back to camp empty-handed without falling apart. And meat sharing, the social glue that kept the whole group alive even on the days the hunt failed. That's the version of teaching your son to hunt that actually survived, generation after generation, weapon after weapon, all the way down to you. You never held a spear, but somewhere, somebody taught you to wait for the right moment instead of forcing a bad one. Somebody taught you to keep going after you missed. That instinct didn't come from nowhere. It's about 170 centuries deep, and it's still running in the background every single day.